Okay, this is a 1991 Dodge Caravan. You may call this an old car, I call it a new car. But you know what, I'm willing to compromise. We can call this a boomer van. There's a valve core that normally sits down in that connection. I used an ordinary valve core remover, pulled it right out of there. I went to the car parts store, and they said I could get a fuel gauge that would plug into this little nubbin here. That would cost me $184. Well, that was way too much to determine whether or not my fuel system leaked. So I would hesitate, and they said, well, there's another one that's like $128 or something like that, but you have to rebuild your system each time you use it. So, you know, it's better to get the other one. But they would fix, they would test my fuel pressure for only 50 bucks. Well, it sounds like a deal, except the thing costs, you know, it cost me 100 bucks just to tow it into the place, and another 100 bucks to get it home unless I had them fix it, and then I really need to winch the wallet open. So instead, I bought an elbow there for 50 bucks. Or, no, actually the elbow was $3.50. This gauge came from Jegs. It was only it was $26.50, so I'm out 30 bucks to get this gauge right on there like that. Okay, let's turn the power on and see what happens. I don't see any fuel pressure. No fuel pressure. I have almost half a tank of gas and no fuel pressure. Above freezing. Well, the internet said to smack the underside of the gas tank with a stick. I need to find a stick. If the fuel pump goes bad, sometimes it will bind up inside the fuel tank, and you whack the underside of the fuel tank a few times with a stick, and it'll jar it loose, and it'll start pumping fuel again. But that's over 200 bucks for that part, and you gotta pull the tank out. Put that brass elbow on there, and I put Teflon paste on it and the aftermarket gauge. Anything? Nope. Nothing. Okay. And one of these relays over here is supposed to be the fuel relay. Let's see if we got power to it. They have this thing called an auto shut-off relay. There's 3 relays that fit in here, right next to each other, like this. And so I pull this one apart. I've got rust on here. That's the first sign something's wrong. And I did an ohm meter test between this one and this one here. There's resistance. The other one, all other connections are dead. That means these are the field wires. These are supposed to close the relay and connect these two. So, and I took this wire and I jumped the other 2 connections. Now let's take a look at what happens when I do that. Here, that one in there. Look at that. I have 50 psi of oil pressure. I'm in luck. If this part, they call it an auto shut-off relay or something like that. They could call it a, cheeseburger and fry as far as I care. This thing is a fuel pump relay. That's what that is. Whatever they want to call it. I went to the car parts store, got a replacement for my old relay. Does not look identical. It doesn't have this skirt on it, and it has an extra tab in the center, but there's a slot for that tab. There's no metal in there, so we should be able to just plug it right in there like that, and we'll give it a crank and see if we got fuel pressure. been sitting a while, so we'll have to charge the battery, it looks like. Okay, it sat overnight with the battery charger running. Let's see if it'll start up. Well, starts, it runs, it has fuel pressure. So funny how that works. You get fuel pressure, it suddenly starts running again. Got that nasty tick in there. But you know, it's been sitting with dirty oil for a year, so maybe it's got a little sediment in there somewhere where it's blocking something. I've got some Mercon Dextron training fluid. I'm gonna put it in the crankcase. It'll do two things. It'll thin the oil and add detergent to the oil. That'll help clean it up, but it'll also reduce the capacity of the oil to lubricate. So I don't want to leave it in there all the time. I'll make sure not to drive it more than 40 or 50 miles before changing the oil. Of course, as soon as it warms up, it may actually run better. But if we look at the fuel gauge, I've got a consistent 40 pounds of pressure. And according to the shop I went to, the standard fuel pressure, the pressure relief valve, is set at 48 pounds, so it might be a little on the low side. Then again, it may not matter. I don't know. Maybe somebody can leave me a message, send me a reply whether or not this is normal. Anyway, this problem I'm declaring fixed. Watch your speed.